Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast, to the video, however you're listening to the content. Once again, greatly appreciate your love and support that you constantly give to the page. This week, a little bit different. I have Josh from Supercoach Whisperer on, and to talk all things Supercoach. I thought a great time to get Supercoach Wiz on. It's getting to that run home to the finals for Supercoach. A lot of important trades to come, a lot of important players to look for. And I thought, I need to talk to an expert because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing myself. The amount of content I watch is ridiculous. So, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom for all our League of Inches lovers, fans. And first of all, what made you get into the page, the Supercoach Whisperer, and how long you had it for?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. To use the term expert is quite loose. We'll take it though. So I remember sort of the back end of 2019. Had a couple of decent years playing Supercoach. Obviously, we started playing fantasy sports. Whether you play whatever kind of fantasy sport you play, we all play because we love the sport that we are playing in. I had a couple of decent finishes and had a spare bit of time with COVID, as many people did, and just sort of was toing and froing. Didn't really know how to make graphics or anything like that, but I thought I had an okay brain for Supercoach and wanted to share, I guess, some of my insight. And so I started that about 3 years ago during COVID, and since then it's sort of gone bigger and better, and really really loving it. Hopefully have plans on sort of trying to be in the content creator space as some kind of full-time gig, whether it's through Supercoach or not. I'm not too sure, but yeah, about 3 years ago, and really loving it. It does take its toll. Some weeks are hard. As I'm sure you know, you're running a page. You do have people that are out there that can be vocal about the stuff that you put out, and sometimes those days are hard to read things. But you do develop a little bit of thick skin, and I really love what I do.
Yeah, that and a bit of time factor as well, I find often can get a bit challenging, especially balancing work, family life, personal life, things like that. So I think a lot of people are appreciating the work that a lot of people like yourself do with the content world. I know I love it. But we're here to talk all things Supercoach. I've wanted to go over the 10 key players each Supercoach player should have for the run home. Now, I'm guessing we're probably going to talk about this individually. We'll go through individual players. So I'll let you take away with, are you going to go from 10 to 1, or you want to go, is there a, just...
I might just group them, because the way I've looked at it, it's really going to depend on sort of how you play. If you're more of a head-to-head player, you're probably not going to try and have the more highly owned guys, whereas yourself and me, we're in sort of that overall space trying to get that best rank. So we're probably going to lean towards the higher owned players. But just looking sort of from round 21 to 27, that big run home, if you're putting sort of teams through a fixture list and sort of getting an idea, the Sharks come out on top. So straight away, someone like Nico Hines, he's owned by 50% of the game. Still probably unders now that he's sort of fallen out of favour in the Origin space. Looks like they're not going to run with him for 18th man. It looks like Mitch Moses is probably going to have the jersey win or lose this week. If New South Wales do lose, the series is done. So there's no point bringing Nico in. If New South Wales win, they'll probably keep Moses in the squad. There's no point breaking that up. So Nico Hines is probably the first one that comes straight to mind. A guy that I own personally is Ronaldo Mulitalo. I just don't see a world where I trade him out. I think with the Sharks, sure, if Nico was firing, we saw what they did to the Bulldogs just a couple of days ago at the back end of round 16, just put the sword through them. And in a side that had 48 points, Ronaldo came away with 70 Supercoach points, and that could have been a whole lot more. So they're probably the two from the Sharks I'm going to be definitely looking at. The next team down on the fixture list is the Dolphins, believe it or not. Two other players come to mind. Jeremy Marshall-King, I would say probably the most improved player in the NRL this year. Actually, that title could be rivaled with the next man in Jermaine Asako. He is someone that I remember he came out in rounds 1 and 2 and scored huge, and everyone jumped on. And I just sort of looked at it, was like, we're just chasing points. I mean, we've got pedigree of Asako. It's not fantastic for him, and I think he bombed it in round 3, and I felt vindicated. And since then, it's just been points after points after points. His base is through the roof. His work rate's amazing. Goal kicking, he's one of the best strikers in the comp, and he's really found a home for Wayne Bennett on that right-hand side.
I'll put my hand up quickly. I actually got him a lot later than round 2 with that similar thought process, so I was kicking myself.
I still don't own him. We're heading into round 17. And I still don't own the bloke, so I'll definitely be looking at getting him in sometime soon. But yeah, he's a frustrating one. Probably the third best team in terms of fixtures would be Manly. Ruben Garrick comes to mind. Obviously, didn't have the greatest game in round 16, but back in round 15 in that centre spot with Turbo in the team and DCE, that right-hand side was humming. If you want to go a little bit pottish, Hammer Olakawatu, but you can't really rule out the man in Tom Trbojevic. I mean, Manly finished the season with the Warriors, the Bulldogs, and the Tigers. So, nice, juicy run for them to finish up. And I think Turbo will be a guy that's, I would say, 30 or 40% of the top 1% have. So he's a guy that you probably want to have with him there. Believe it or not, the Tigers actually have probably the fourth best fixture list on the run home. But apart from really John Bateman, I'm sort of not really looking at many Tigers players. And that's sort of a mixed bag. Melbourne have a good draw, so do the Titans. I know David Fafita, his bye structure and his production after round 13, game 1 of Origin wasn't fantastic, which put a lot of people off. But I think he's a guy that you'll want to have for the run home. As are guys like Nick Meaney. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Ryan Pappenhausen. I'm not sure if we see him play again this year. And if we do, it'll be very, very late in the piece.
Well, there was initially news that broke a couple of weeks ago now that he was looking at returning within about 3 or 4 weeks, and he quickly went online actually and squashed those rumours. So I think if he is a chance at all in running on a football field this year, it's going to be in Queensland Cup. So I don't think he's going to be at the Melbourne Storm this year on the field for Melbourne Storm at all. So definitely not one to look for, I don't think. So
then
it's such a bad injury.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think even he said it. He was on a podcast a couple months ago and said that he originally thought it'd be a couple of months thing, and then the NRL physio came out and said these things are very, very complex, and I think perhaps sort of realizing how complicated it is now. I mean, when you shatter your entire kneecap, it's not ideal. And I mean, for Supercoaches, we'd love to see him come back for 3 or 4 games and play 15, 20 minutes off the bench because we'd get him at an absolute bargain next year.
Yeah.
But I think Nick Meaney is the big beneficiary of that, as is obviously Cam Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Harry Grant. No genius takes there.
Yeah. So on that for Pappenhausen for next year, if Supercoach are trying to play super early, what is there a rough price? Would he go down a lot because he hasn't been playing, or is it go off the last time he played?
It's normally if he doesn't step foot on a field this year, it's normally 20% discount. You're looking very similar to someone like a Josh Hodgson who only played 2 games last year in his ACL. So it's normally a 20% discount. However, if he does come in, I think if he does play 3 games, if he plays 3 or 4 games, it's then done off average. So Supercoaches are wanting him to come back, play very little minutes, average very little, and then come in at an absolute bargain price next year.
Come off the bench for the last few games.
Absolutely. So I guess they're some of the guys that I'm targeting. I'm someone that's looking at team matchups more than players themselves, but I'm sure you've got a list there. And who are the guys that you're sort of targeting?
Well, for mine, it's sort of I can't say too much, but I was looking. Obviously, Parramatta are a really good side to look at in the lead up to about now, but as you've mentioned, because of the buy structures, they've still got 2 to go. So players like, for mine, Gutherson was looking good early. We obviously seen on the weekend he scored well, but is that a player you're looking at sort of offloading if Supercoaches do have him at the moment in upgrading to maybe or downgrading to a turbo or something like that?
I'm probably just going to run with him until you mentioned Parramatta. It's really good because Parramatta actually, they have a bye in round 18 and the last bye is in round 27. And round 27 is pretty crucial because not only is it the last round of the season, but it's also a time where coaches just rest a lot of their star players. So if you have a lot of Parramatta players, you are also going to be probably forced into making at least 3 or 4 changes when coaches rest them. So it's all well and good to have these Parramatta players, but definitely try and keep some trades up your sleeve. If you still have a boost handy, wonderful. I'd be holding it for 27. But Gutho for mine, I think without Dylan Brown, I'm just going to run with him for a time being. Like, I'm no lawyer. I've got no law degree, but I just look at the Jack DeBellin situation from last year and how the court proceedings were so dragged out. I don't know if we do get I know that Dylan Brown goes back to court in a couple of weeks, but I'm not sure if we get a massive update. The NRL are pretty firm on standing players down when they are facing charges.
Yep.
I think some owners are optimistic that Dylan Brown does come back, but until he's named, I'm pretty happy to run with Gutherson. I think he gets his hands on the footy a whole lot more. And obviously being in New South Wales camp, I don't think going to help Mitch Moses, which should therefore help Gutho.
Yeah. Another player for mine who I feel like he's pretty crucial, and I got him a couple of weeks ago, is Kalen Ponga. We're starting to see him get to some of his better form we've seen for a while. He's actually managed to stay on the field as well. Is he one of those crucial players to get into your lineups?
Yeah, look, I live in Newcastle, and he's a very, very divisive figure. I mean, I love watching him play, but Newcastle Knights fans, they're sort of still undecided. When it comes to a Supercoach standpoint, there's no really elite fullbacks. I mean, guys like Latrell, guys like Turbo and Tedesco. I mean, Trell's been killing it, but they have a buy in round 20, another one in round 26, which is also round 26's most people's head-to-head grand finals. And between that period, South's draw is not amazing. So there's question marks over Trell. I mean, Teddy's been out of form all year. Turbo's got the injury clout. There hasn't been many elite fullbacks. So I think the duel that KP does possess, slotting him between 5'8" and fullback, is going to be huge. And we just want him to get that goal kicking back. I mean, Hastings hasn't been striking them too well. So if Ponga can get that goal kicking back, then it's definitely going to make him, all the more viable.
Last fullback I'll touch on with you is the Tigers' young gun, absolutely massive debut so far he's had in his debut season. Dream Buller, a lot of people got on. He was obviously that cheapy price tag. Where is he shaping in the Supercoach run home? Because I feel like he's going to be a crucial player either way of what way you decide to do. What do you decide to do with him?
Very divisive. I'm actually looking at moving him on this week only because Buller to Cam Munster actually nets me 50k. He's actually more expensive than Munster, so it's an easy move there. He's had an absolute sensational 8-9 weeks. He's now, I would say, maxed out. He's over 700k. I think Jolly's got a break even of 130. Now is where you really put the line in the sand, and you got to say to yourself, is this is it? This is the week. You need to decide whether Buller is a keeper or not, because if you don't think he's a keeper, it's a really, really nice time to cash out at 700k. However, for what we have seen of him, definitely, got keeper potential. Luke Brooks being out, Api Coruscant being out, probably doesn't help him all the best. And I think they do play the Tigers. The Tigers do play the Storm this week, which is never a fun matchup.
No, I sort of said this last week with the Tigers as well, in terms of I just don't know where their points are going to come from at the moment while they're missing two of their key spine figures, and that's a worry for mine, especially when it comes to Supercoach and Buller's points. He was getting quite a bit of attacking stats, and I think that'll dry up quickly. So I'm actually probably with you there with the Munster trade. I love the sound of that. So I'll pretty much just go with positions then. We'll just go to the wing centres. A couple of crucial ones I can sort of see in this run home is Val Holmes, who's sort of been under the radar this year, but I feel like he's been scoring quite well, or getting at least his value across the line. And the occasion he got that massive one a few weeks ago that a lot of people sold.
I sold you that week.
You wanted to.
You're right, though. I remember we think back to February when podcasters were off the chains. We're talking about how good the Cowboys draw was, and if they can keep up the form from last year. And we obviously know in hindsight that they didn't. But Val Holmes was still averaging 63, 64, and it felt like everyone was just ragging on him. But hell, if you're getting a centre wing that's averaging 64 in a poor side, that big game was just around the corner. And unfortunately for me, it was the week that I did sell. But look, he's a guy that he's a goal kicking centre in a side that is getting better. So it's very hard to argue against him.
I was going to get rid of him that week as well, but I had too many issues in my team. I just literally couldn't get around to doing it. So I was actually, for once, glad I didn't make a trade that I was originally planning to do. Another one was the guy I thought suspended this week, who has been quite good as well in the region you live at. Once again, is Marju. Thoughts on Marju?
Missing the bus, Greg Marzu. Look, he's been great. I mean, he's another guy that I watch every Sunday and tear my hair out the fact that I don't own. And the frustrating thing about Marzu is I was probably one of his biggest fans in the preseason, and then had the hit pointer issue and missed sort of the first month, and I just never got around to getting him. And I mean, he is someone we saw this at the Titans. When he gets to game time, he's absolutely devastating with the ball in hand. The problem was his discipline and obviously his defensive liabilities. They haven't been cured, but I think they've been masked a little bit. With having sort of Bradman Best in the side, it does sort of help having a bigger body on your inside there. So, I mean, Greg Marzu has been great. I think if you're high on KP, you've got to be high on Greg Marzu because it sort of goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Any other wing centers you can point the viewers into? I know you've already mentioned Asako. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, Asako and Mulatalo, just based off matchups, they're probably the two best ones. I mean, Campbell Graham, I know that the draw isn't fantastic, but he's someone that seems to be pretty fixture proof. He's also he's one of the best centers for a reason. But apart from that, I think center wing this year could be a position where you take a few punts and just try and run matchups and try and get the highest score possible. I mean, it's pretty hard to pick. We saw Will Warbrick on the weekend have 4 tries and 3 line breaks and score 140. And I think I owned him for about 10 weeks and he didn't score 140 points combined in those 10 weeks. So it's something that it's a hard position to pick, but if you can get it right, you obviously see those massive rewards.
Just one final one that popped up in my head quickly. Alex Johnston. I know there was a lot of talk with him a few weeks ago with the South run. I feel like he's been impacted because of some of the injuries that South have had, and that left side attack hasn't been as great as we've necessarily seen in the past. Are you steering clear of Johnston, or is that someone you've either got or you're looking at?
Yeah, no, I do have Johnson. I think the only thing that does worry me is a bye in round 20, the Broncos in round 21, the Sharks in rounds 23, and then another bye in 26. And as we already alluded to earlier, Joel, that round 26 is your head-to-head finals. So I think if you own Alex Johnson, you probably have to own Cody Walker because you want a slice of both the pies. I think people need to understand that when Alex Johnson gets a try and Cody Walker assists it, that's a 60-point play for your team. It's not just one player. If you had the stack, then it's a massive swing for your team. So as long as you have the cover and understand that you might be playing your head-to-head grand final 1 or 2 short, or if you want to move on from them, it's definitely something to consider. But yeah, I bought him around 13, around 14, and have been very happy ever since.
Yeah, 5'8". There's obviously a big gun, as you mentioned, out for who knows how long in Dylan Brown, which has been a massive blow, I think, to a lot of super coaches and the planning that they were originally making. You've got, obviously, some people have Ponga as their 5'8". You've got Cody Walker, Cam Munster. There's obviously quite a few. Who are you selecting as your 2, ideally, for the run home?
At the moment, with trades this week, I'll have Munster and Walker, which is really nice. However, if I don't make the trades, you still have Joey Manu that can slot in there. He does have that 5'8" duel. Sam Walker seems to be getting setback after setback. Teddy playing Origin. Manu does have the versatility for Trent Robertson to sift between 6, 4, and 1. And we know his performances at 1 are brilliant. We saw that on the weekend. So he is definitely someone that needs to be there. I do think Cam Munster needs to be in your squad for the run home. And then it's a case of how much depth do you have? Can you cover for Cody Walker being out in rounds 20 and 26? Because I think he's probably the clear number 2. Dylan Brown being out does open up the doors. We even saw someone like a Tommy Dearden, who's really improved his running game. If you did want to go that pod route, then Tom Dearden could be there in and around it as well.
On the Eels, obviously, he's a replacement, Dejan Arce. Is he someone as a sneaky pod, or just too dear and not enough track record to sort of see his points?
We're now in round 17, Joel. I'm not sure I want to be taking trades on speculative players. I mean, I've seen a few of my followers mention, what about someone like a Daniel Tupu? And if it was 8 weeks ago, I'd probably get around it. But it's just that I don't know if I want to be... Look, we're limited on trades as it is. I don't know if I want to be wasting one of my crucial trades on a guy that I'm sort of hoping for. I'd much rather take a punt on a player like that earlier on with the upside of potentially some cash or some good points. And if it doesn't work out, then move him on. I'm seeing that now with someone like a Reed Marnie. I've had Reed Marnie since round 3, and he's just sort of at a gross price. He's not really going up or down in that sort of mid 400s that I can't move on from. That's why I'm sticking clear of those speculative plays from now moving forward. I'm trying to solidify some of my guns, and if that means trading out 2 for 1, I'm trading out like a Josh Schuster and a Ben Murdoch-Masila for enough and a big gun. You'd much rather do that than sort of split your funds more evenly.
Yeah. Halfbacks, I feel like there's 2 obvious choices that just streak well clear. That's obviously Cleary, and you've got Nico Hines as well. There's a smoky out there. I feel like Jerome Hughes might be a decent option at the moment for the Storm, especially during Origin while he covers the loss of Munster as a key half. I know I had him this week, so hopefully you got something good to say about him. But I'm looking at trading him back into Cleary eventually once he makes a little quick bit of cash. Any other halfbacks or?
I think if you're a serious player, it's a question of how long do you give Cleary? Do you Brian back straight away, or do you get him back in after a week or 2? I'm not really playing silly buggers at halfback. I'm seeing, like, I own Mitch Moses and Nico Hines. I'm seeing people trade at Mitch Moses for a 1 or 2 week play on Hughes and SJ. I'd rather just hold Moses and trade him to Cleary when Cleary comes back. Like I said, I'm not really in the position to make 2 or 3 trades on a rule out of positions at this time. So for me, it'll be Cleary and Hines. The question is just when do I pair Hines back up with Cleary? Do I do it when he comes straight back, or do I do it after a week or two? Give him a look.
If I'm seeing this correctly, is Cleary's return date is around about when finals start, or maybe a week or two before for Supercoach.
Yep.
So it's a pretty big call, because you don't want to be versing someone in, say, finals week 1 or something without a Cleary taking that gamble, and all of a sudden he's put a 150 on, which we've seen him do time and time again. That'd be a huge blow.
Yeah, I think it was last year. I think it might have been around 5 or 6 he did a hemi, but he was only out for a week or two. He had a slow game 1. He came back game 2 and scored 140, 150. So it's definitely going to be a case by case thing. And you can look at it 2 ways. Do I pay 900K for a bloke that is not 100%, or do I take the risk and just hope he comes back to his best?
Second rowers, I feel like there's just a huge bubble ball, just a group of players where you can pick a fair few of them, and they're going to be up and down or scoring similar week to week. Can you help us out with second rowers? Because personally, I'm confused with it.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 players that are considered must-haves for the run home. One being Jermaine Asako, the other being Dave Fifita. You then chuck in guys like Keon Koloamatangi, Britton Nikora, Jacob Preston to an extent. I mean, he's been really good. But yeah, 2RF this year, it's been a case of a lot of good mid-rangers. I mean, we look at guys like Cam Murray. He's 500K. In previous years, Cam Murray was a 750K stud, and he is not playing well for Supercoach this year. It's very much a blanket position where I think you can group a lot of people in. I think apart from Fifita and Hopgood, and maybe Nikora, there isn't anyone that's really setting the 2RF position a lot. Not like it is in the front row forwards that we will touch on. For me, I've got 5 front row forward 2RF duels, just because, like I said, apart from Fifita and Hopgood, there's no one really that I'm loving. So I'm just going to rotate some of my middles in and out throughout there moving forward. On those middles, you've got guys like Tohu Harris, Corey Horsburgh, Joe Tarpany, Jack DeBellin. They're sort of the tier 2 of front row forwards, but I think the clear ones are Payne Haas and Tino Fa'asu or Malawi. It's every year it happens for me. I'm someone that tries to save money in front row forward, but every year I look at Payne Haas at 650, 700K, and I go, it's just not worth it. But every year I get to around 20, I'm like, oh God, I need Payne Haas back in. So I'm making a rule for myself next year that once Supercoach opens up in January or February or whatever,
first in,
Haas is in there, and I'm just around him. I'm not playing around.
Yeah, with the second rowers, Jacob Preston is one that, for me, points out, just because I'm not 100% sure what to do with him. I've held on to him because he's made cash and he's been a number for a couple of crucial weeks over the last few weeks. What do I do with him? Because he's scoring decently. Nothing. He doesn't look like a player who can get to that sort of Fifita height, so in terms of points.
Yeah, he doesn't have that dominance. I think he's very reliable and very consistent. I'm actually looking at moving him on this week, which could be crazy because he's a number for moving forward. But I've got the benefit of moving Preston to someone like a Harry Grant, which does have the upside. We saw that 2 weeks ago when he scored 140 or whatever. But Preston, he's not someone that I would run out onto the street and scream sell. But he is a guy that if you did sell him, I wouldn't bat an eyelid at it.
Yeah. What about Koloamatangi? He's sort of finding a bit of form, I feel like, and he's sort of on the edge of the origin as well for the Blues. And South, I feel like if they do continue to have injuries to Murray, things like that, he could be a bit of a big player and some big scores coming his way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw that in the early parts of the season. He was averaging mid-60s and pushing 70 and was definitely in that Blues sort of debate. And then he had the foot injury. He's looked okay back from injury, but he's a guy that I want to just make sure he gets back to 100%. This is why I didn't jump on a cut price Jacob Kiraz, because I just wanted to see what it looked like with the injury coming back. And Kiraz obviously worked out by not jumping on. Koloamatangi, I wouldn't say it's worked out, but I wouldn't say it's gone terribly. He's sort of been okay. But he's a guy that I'm definitely looking at. It's a case. It's not the case, though. Do I want to have a million South players? Do I want to have a Campbell Graham? Do I want to have a Keon? Do I want to have Cody, AJ, Latrell when they're out 20 and 26? So although they're great players on paper, it's probably a case by case thing, and looking at your team and looking at how many players you have from each team. Because this year, it's the first year that we've had buys in a very, very long time, and it's a year that we've had to manage expectations and manage numbers. So I think Keon's great. I think Keon's great only if you don't have a pile of South Sydney players.
Yeah, and I think the worry in terms of an NRL point of view with the like for South, for instance, I've seen them this year have that off game in them when it's a game they're supposed to win and win comfortably. So that could be a small worry because you're banking on players like Johnson to score those massive amounts of points with tries, and it just doesn't come. You're sitting there going, well, where are these points coming from? What about quickly with the Sharks? There's two obviously second rowers there who have been in the conversation pretty much all year in terms of having, especially Nikora lately. If you've got to choose between Wilton or Nikora, because can you have two in the one position from the one club? I've heard that's almost an automatic no.
I think for TRFs it's fine because they do get through a bit of work. Teague Wilton was a guy I was probably in terms of the Supercoach space, I was probably the most vocal pro Teague Wilton. I remember a lot of people were worried that Wade Graham would take minutes off him, but Teague Wilton's one of those rare 80-minute edges that can just get through work. So it's good to see him getting there. If you have to pick one, I'm taking Nicker. I just think he's as quick as a center, but he's as big as a good middle. He combines both well. He's also playing on Nico's edge, which does give him that boost. I don't know about you, but if I'm banking on a halfback to give my 2RF good ball, I'd be backing Hines over Moylan all day long.
Definitely.
But I think you can run both. I mean, I wouldn't be going out of my way to buy Wilton, but I'm sure a lot of people still have him from round one. And I think you could add Nicker to that. It's not a huge thing. I don't think. It's not like having two opposite wingers where you need tries to come from both sides of the field. At least you will get 40, 45 points from Wilton with no ball going down his way.
Yeah, I'm one of those Wilton fans who've held on to him since day one. So it's the only reason I stayed away from Nikora, actually, because I was sort of using it as a blanket rule not to have both, but glad you clarified that one. The front rowers, I feel like we've already mentioned it. Payne Haas is generally heads and shoulders above.
Position. I mean, there's not really much to talk about. It's Payne Haas, it's Tino, and then it's probably the four guys I mentioned before: Horsburgh, Tarpany, Jack DeBellin, Adam Fenor-Blake. You can chuck in there as well, and Tohu Harris. Apart from that, it's a very, very boring position. Like I said, next year I won't try and outsmart the room and get Ryan Sutton and Daniel Saifidi in round one. I'll actually just pay up for Payne Haas.
Yeah, we can move on from that position there. You summed it up perfectly. That's why you're the expert.
The next position's probably even worse to talk about. There's not a whole lot happening in hooker, is there?
No, it's set and forget, isn't it? Cook and Grant is basically your hookers, if I'm saying that correctly.
Cook and Grant. I mean, if Jeremy Marshall-King gets back to his pre-injury form, I mean, I've got Reid Marnie, and he's been there since round 3, and he's been a player. That's sort of it. Really.
I had him for a while, and I needed to get rid of him.
Hooker's great, and that's sort of what I was saying before. Like, I'm probably going to trade out Jacob Preston this week, not because he's a bad player, just because I can get Harry Grant, and I think the positional value of Harry Grant over, a decent 2RF is just so much better because the drop off is just so great at hooker. I mean, I've got Reid Marnie and Jake Granville as my hookers, so it's pretty slim picking. So I just think the positional value of Grant, Cook, and Jeremy Marshall-King is just by far and away the better play.
So obviously, I feel like Grant's number one in that position. Between the debate for Cook versus JMK, is that something where we spoke about obviously just before about having too many club players? So that depend on how many South players you have, I'm guessing, because you don't have many Dolphins. You've got probably a Sarko, and
maybe Balance Savado.
Yeah, maybe them.
That's it. I would probably still rank JMK too, taking away the team factor. That's provided that he is 100%. I just think he's creative out of dummy half. He's looking to run a lot, and Cook, he hasn't lost that ability, but he's just not doing it as much as 2018, 2019, 2020. Damien Cook once did.
Yeah. In terms of cash and generating cash, is that so important now as we get to this final stage, or should you just be looking at those guns, getting them in somehow?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Unless an absolute bona fide stud cheapie comes up, I'm not going out of my way to buy them. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of the 2-for-1 trades are probably more beneficial. Taking out 2 mid-rangers for enough and a gun is probably where your cash generation will come from in terms of cash generating into your bank account rather than making money on the field. unless Wayne Bennett come out and said that Branko Lee's out for the season and Tavade plays centre, I'm probably not going to be looking at buying many cheapies, if any, moving forward. I'd just be looking at nuffs.
Yeah, no, definitely. A couple of fan questions to end things would be the first one. Which spine is the ideal one to own for the run home? So the 1, 6, 7, and 9.
One, I wouldn't say there's a clear-cut answer at one. Like I said, Latrell Mitchell's probably the best option, but he does have a buy in 20 and 26 and does have this lingering hamstring issue.
Yeah.
Nick Meaney,
that no one knows what's happening with, to be honest.
Nick Meaney's got the versatility at fullback, centre wing. So does Jermaine Asako. And Tedesco, if you can get behind the Roosters, getting back into form. Like I said, there's just a lot of question marks over a lot of these fullbacks. So I wouldn't say anyone's got a nailed down position. I think it's key to have versatility. Asako, Garrick, Meaney, these guys that sort of you can just filter through based off matchups. 6, I think it's probably Cody Walker and Munster if you can find the balance of your South players. 7 we've touched on. I think it's Hines and Cleary, and then hooker. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, if you can get 100% fit Jerry Marshall King, then it's him and Grant. But if not, I wouldn't be going out of my way too much to double up at hooker. I think you can probably just run with Grant in a perfect sense.
Yeah. How many trades should you have remaining? Ideally, I don't think there's an ideally world.
25, ideally, with 5 boosts. In a real world, I had 13 coming into this week, and I sort of sat down and did my planning at sort of round 12, round 13 about what I'm thinking. And look, if I can have 1 trade a week from rounds 21 onwards, so that's 21, that's 6 weeks. If I can have 6 to 7 trades from round 21, I think that's fine. Because as I said, after round 20, we don't have the 3 teams in a bye anymore. It's just the standalones. So your coverage should be fine. And then you should just be making trades based off matchups. I think your team should be close to settled by round 20. And then you should just be making matchup trades. I mean, like if Turbo plays, I don't know, the Tigers at Brookvale on a Sunday afternoon, then you probably just use a luxury trade to bring him in for that 1 week, and that's what I'd be doing. But keep 2 trades up your sleeve, at least 2, if you have a boost, perfect for round 27, because Parramatta are on the bye. I know a lot of people have a lot of Parramatta assets, and coaches just rest a lot of their players in round 27, just in general NRL.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And unfortunately, I'm not one of those people that own the boosters anymore. So,
I ran out of boost in about round 7, my friend. So,
oh, great! I feel a bit better about that now. Last one in the theme of this week is obviously Origin. Do you start working Origin players back into your side now, or do you wait until Game 3 is over?
I think Origin backs probably more of a priority because they're more likely to back up. I mean, like, if you have no pressing issues, yeah, bring Payne Haas in, sure. But for me, for example, like I'm going Bullet and Munster, and I will go Preston to Grant probably. So I'm slowly starting to siphon them back in, but I'm not going out of my way to deliberately do it. I don't have a set time frame. If the matchup works, if the money works, I'll do it. I mean, if I had plans on getting Grant and Munster back in, it just happened that it worked this week. I wasn't going out of my way to get them.
Yeah. That's all we have now, Josh. I really appreciate your time coming on, talking all things Supercoach. I know everyone absolutely loves it. Guys, if you've been living under a rock, please go and subscribe, like Josh's Supercoach Whisperer page. Josh, I'll give you the floor to quickly spruik your page, let everyone know where to find you.
Yeah, you'll find me on Twitter spreading a lot of nonsense, just at SCWhisperer. Instagram, I do a little bit more formal stuff with my visual posts and whatnot, and that's just the SCWhisperer. I host a dual position podcast with my co-host SC Adrianosaurus. Obviously, if you're wanting a longer form podcast for Supercoach, every Thursday night we live stream over on YouTube, and it is also available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you do get your main audio platforms from. But yeah, look, you'll probably catch me lurking around, tweeting a lot of nonsense and sprouting my love for Max King and why he should be playing for the New South Wales Blues.
Thank you, Josh. Guys, as I said, go and give all these platforms a like on everywhere you can find it on social media. Enjoy the episode. Thanks for all the love, and we will be back shortly with another episode.